And when we actually look at this on like an actual like idea of what it looks like, most people who are at the highest levels of sport are sick. And it's not like sick as in like they have a cough. It's just like, that's not health,
Yeah.
like they might look the part, they might have really low body fat, and they might, have these like godlike physiques, but they're not, always the healthiest. They're not always getting there the best. And they see these guys who look, jacked, and there's veins popping out, and they might be at 80% sometimes. And it's just like, people are like, that's health.
I'm joined again by Brandon Gallagher, a personal trainer who's redefining MMA training and athlete coaching. From balancing elite fight camps to exploring his global journey, Brandon and I look into sustainability and fitness, content creation, and what it takes to stay at top of your game no matter where you are. You're not going to want to miss these lessons on performance optimization and building a winning mindset. And if you're enjoying these conversations, highly recommend following Brandon across social media. I have links down below. And if you are enjoying this content, I always appreciate if you could give me a subscription, give it a like, follow, comment on it. Really, anything you can do to support this, and feel free to provide feedback. I'm always looking to hear more from the people who are getting value out of this content. Now, for the second time, Brandon Gallagher, let's get it. Welcome back to Fight Capital, where we enter the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rapaport. Today, I am lucky to be once again joined by the incredible Brandon Gallagher. Brandon is the mastermind behind BG Performance, a strength and conditioning coach for world-class MMA fighters, and a mentor to athletes worldwide. Beyond his work in the gym, Brandon is an avid traveler, an inspiring triathlon competitor, and someone who's redefining what it means to train elite athletes. And whether it's cornering Ian Gary or preparing Paul Hughes for his upcoming PFL fight, Brandon's dedication to performance optimization is unmatched in the industry. Brandon, great to see you back, brother. How are you, and where are you joining from?
I'm in New York right now, and yeah, it's great. It's great to be back. Great to talk. Always great to have hop on and have a conversation with you. It's good.
Yeah, man. Well, I always feel like I'm playing Where in the World is Brandon Gallagher. So happy to have you stateside again, man. So no, hey, I know you're coming off of a epic trip coming up, whether it was in Thailand, the UK, Las Vegas. But just to touch on some recent events, you were out in Ian Gary's corner, getting him ready for the 310. And man, what a performance from his part. Obviously didn't go his way, but talk to me a little bit about what that experience was like and how it was different from any other fight camps that you've been a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the third time I've been in Ian's corner. So I've been at the last three fights for Jeff Neal, MVP, and now Shavkat. And I think, it's always different for me being in Ian's corner because I'm with him all the time. So it's a different experience than what I've had in the past. And even with some of the other camps that I've been in, from start to finish, they're always different. And one, because like I said, having so much time with Ian, I get a lot more of that like build up with him. So I'm able to work on things that I'm not able to work on with other people. I essentially live with the dude. So we have a way better relationship than I've had with anybody else in regards to like working with them. And we do other things like outside of just the training together. So we went to a football game this year in London. We've been to, where else did we go? We've done a couple. We went to see Anthony Jeselnik, like little things like that, where it's just, that we always have ways where things are fun, but when it comes down to it, we get the work done that needs to be done. And I think with Ian, like, he's doing this lifestyle for a reason, and he brought me along for a reason, and that's to make sure that no matter what, at any point, he's ready. And I think even this, I know it wasn't like technically short notice, but having an opponent change that late and having an opponent change of that magnitude that late is huge. And I think that it just shows that, like, that's why we do what we do. And that's why, we have the way we have everything set up, from the camp to the travel, all that stuff, it is different, but it's for a reason. It's because when these moments pop up, we've always said this from the beginning, I think that from the moment we started working together, it was like for these moments that we've had the last few fights, these big names, these big ideas, these big, occasions. And I think that one of the beautiful things is that being together so much time, like it just automatically makes it different no matter what. And then obviously the training itself is different because Ian's a different athlete from Paul, from Amanda, from Dustin, from, you know, the other people that I've worked with. But I think no matter what, it's just the idea that we're together throughout like a long time of the year, and it's bound to be different due to that aspect of it. But yeah, and I think that this camp especially was different just because, you know, we it was like one of the biggest travels we've done. You know, we were supposed to go to Brazil, and then I think it was like 2 days before we were about to leave, Ian was like, "No, we're going to Thailand." I was like, all right." So we just had to change some things up. We ended up, you know, getting the flight out to Thailand, and then once things switched while we were in Thailand, we just were planning out there. So we were planning obviously for Buckley, and then I forgot what, that was like halfway into the trip. I think it was like a week into the trip, everything changed, and we were like, all right, well, cool, we're switching again. So it's just like switching in the middle of it. Like I said, I think the reason he does what he does and the reason it is so unique is for that exact experience. I know most people have a gym setting, but I think that like to have the experience of travel with your family, with your team, and still being able to cater to all those, I guess we can call them changes, right? Like, or roadblocks, whatever you want to call it. Like he has everything that he needs right there, and it's different, you know. But I think each fight camp for me always brings a new level of excitement. I think this last one was just different because it was like we've been asking for it, and Ian had been asking for it and talking about it nonstop. And when it came up, we were like, wow, this is actually happening. Like, there's a couple of times me and Curtis were sitting there like, yo, he's actually about to fight Shavkat. Like, let's, you know? And yeah, there's just excitement. I think that's another thing I've been asked a couple of times in like a couple different settings was, what was the news when he got Shavkat? And I think people were expecting Ian to be nervous or scared, and I don't know what it was, but like Ian was like, no, like I'm ready for this, like I want this. And he was the only one in the division asking, you know, he's the only one in the division asking for Shavkat and asking to be in that situation. And didn't go his way, but I just think that it's the beautiful thing about that fight is there's 2, 3, whatever things that are so small that if he fixes, and they have nothing to do with his skill. Like I just don't think they have anything to do with his skill, because he's shown his skill. He showed his skill that night. He almost submitted Shavkat twice. And obviously I was in the corner and I saw the ninja choke he almost got. I saw the rear naked choke he almost got. And there was a couple other things that he went for, and his skill was there, you know, and that's what we're here for. And that's why we're going to go back. We're going to work on that stuff. And I think that obviously, like I said, he's the beautiful thing is it's small details he's got to fix. And he's got some of the best in the world with him, you know, Damian, Charles, Diego, myself, you know, and we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to figure out everything that needs to be done, and that's it.
Yeah, man, and I always love to give kudos to him and Layla and the Vayner Sports teams for just having that immersive team, whether it's the nutritionist, whether it's Curtis and the content, or it's you. I mean, you guys are basically live in with him, and not there 100% of the time, but there more often than not. And, you know, I think that's such a valuable take on today's combat sports athlete, where it's, you know, maybe it was about the super camps, but now it's about the super team. And I think that you guys have done like an amazing job of getting him ready. And we've seen that transformation over in a pretty short period of time. I know he's been at it for a while now, but I know right after 310, you were out with Paul Hughes for a week when he was down in Florida as he's gearing up for his PFL title fight. Can you talk? I mean, I know you're not 100% of the time with Paul, but getting all the work and you do with him, what's unique about the way that his training regimen's compared to other athletes you've worked with?
Yeah, well, I think I'm not with Paul 100% of the time, but like obviously we're working year round too. Like I work with Paul most of the time online, but outside of that, when I do get the time and more recent, because I worked with Paul in person for about a year in Florida. And then obviously started traveling with Ian, and the schedules just didn't match up. And then in the last 6 months, I was able to go see him 3 times to go get some work in before this fight. So I obviously worked with him this last week. And then I went to Belfast a couple times to see him as well. And Paul's like, I can't wait, because Paul deserves this. Like, he's just that dude who like deserves to knock one of these guys out. And I don't know I'm not sure if, because we were doing a Q&A when we were in Florida, and someone asked him like, how's it going to feel to beat be the first one to beat one of their Magomedovs. I don't know if they have lost yet, but I think Paul's got everything, and he has, like, he just deserves to go out there and starch him. And I think just the way he acts, the way he carries himself, he's one of the, me and him like have so much in common when we talk. And it's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with Paul, because it's not just the training is one thing, and he's on a different level with the training. He's, you know, he does what he needs to do. He gets it done. He's very methodical with it. He thinks about it on a level. And him and Ian are very similar too, you know. I think that, like, that's why we connected originally. But I think with Paul, it's that deeper level that people don't see on the back end of, like, when he's home, he's studying, he's listening, he's reading. Like, one of the things that impressed me the most about Paul was when I went to Belfast, he knows everything there is to know about Belfast, and like was giving me a history lesson and telling me all about the troubles in the 30-year war and the Titanic. And it was one of those things where it's like, that's the type of person he is. And he's a detail-oriented person who works his ass off to get to the point that he's at right now. And he's deserved this just as much as anybody else I've seen, if not more. And yeah, I think that being down there for this fight, because I know how much this fight means to him and I know how big this fight is huge, because it gives me an opportunity to obviously see him. And that's important for me as a coach, to be there and see these guys and have that face-to-face interaction, and to tweak the little things that we got to see. Even just seeing little things for a week, you know, going into a session for a week with somebody and seeing those little details and fixing them and sending him on his way is beautiful, because it helps him, you know, see those little details, let my eyes see it, and then we can tweak the things for the rest of the way. But with someone like Paul, it's just so easy, because it's just, you know, he's someone who's like, what's the work? What needs to be done? How do I do it? And then I come in and it's just like, here's what it is. Here's how we do it. Here's how I want to improve it. And we work together, and it's like I said, a nice collaborative effort. But yeah, I forgot the original question, but Paul deserves everything that's coming his way. And when he gets the belt on January 25th, it's going to be a long time coming, but it's going to be good.
No, man, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, what Paul's been able to accomplish over there in a pretty short period of time. I mean, I know Tim Simpson and Daniel Maudsley at Chosen Advisory were so high on him, and I know the UFC was going hard, but I love this direction from him from the beginning, and he's been able to showcase himself, and he's taking it to one of the best, arguably, in the world right now. Was at Usman's last fight, and there's holes, man. Like, he's not invincible. They're not invincible guys, and you know, it's I'm excited to see him
he's gonna eat one of those Irish left hooks, and he's gonna
throw. They're deadly. I mean, he showed it against AJ as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think, like, being down in Florida, seeing Paul spar, seeing him go against, you know, and he's at Killcliff, and you know, you can say what you want about training partners, and I know this whole thing with Khabib's recently coming up, where he's saying like the level of Ireland is not whatever he was saying. Ireland's a very high level MMA scene, but even Paul going down to Florida, there's everything you need, every body type, size, style, and you kind of see Paul go against these guys, and you're just like, oh my God, like, he's more than ready. You know, like, he's more than ready. And the types of bodies, the duration, the skill level, like, Killcliff's a place where you don't get that. Even, you know, there's not many places in the world where you can go and find that level of skill at every single person, right? Even the guys who aren't at those top promotions yet, they're coming up and there's killers, you know, and they're good. And yeah, I think that wherever the fight goes, Paul's going to be ready. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. And I think that there's a lot of people saying like, yeah, you know, watch out for wrestling, whatever. And honestly, I think that wherever it goes, Paul's going to be there. He's going to be in his face. And I think that it's going to be a rough night for Usman.
It's funny you said that. I just saw that post, and I was like, one, he didn't mention Ian, and two, and I listed people off, and like, you know, Fight Academy Ireland, where Paul's out of SBG, obviously. I mean, they're the world class. You know, there's no way about it. And Fight Academy's coming up too.
I mean, Fight Academy in the next 5 to 10 years, like, they have some absolute killers. Like, and I work with a lot of them out there in Ireland, and this is one of the things that I saw, and I was like, I need to be a part of this, like, be a part of this a little bit more. Damien, Owen, Corey, Paddy McCory's out of there. You know, there's like, you know, you're looking at 10 to 15 kids who are like ranked top 5 in Ireland, and they're coming up, and they're coming up fast. And I think that, like, Ireland used to kind of be looked at as like a boxing town or a boxing country. And I think very quickly they're going to develop into, you know, an MMA place because of Ian, because of Paul, obviously because of Connor. And I think I know Russians are like, scary, but the Irish, man, when they're just dipping their toes in the water. That's why there hasn't been that many of them. But like they're coming, and they're coming fast. You know what I mean? And the skill is gonna be there, and I'm excited to see those comments backfire in the next like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, man. Well, what part of the pleasure of working with you and also following your journey is just the fact of your world travels and all the places you're going around the world to train clients and be part of certain camps. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges and the rewards of balancing this travel with maintaining these top tier training programs and the athletes you're working with?
I think the benefits are obviously, you know, the I get access to a lot of these people, or I get to meet these people I otherwise probably wouldn't have been able to access like originally, like having a chance to work with Charles, having a chance to work with, Dustin, even when I traveled to like things like Florida, being able to work with Amanda, being able to work with Ariani, and even the lower level fighters in Florida that I worked with. But then, being able to, I think, experience gyms, that's a big thing that I love about it. And being able to kind of like see the different settings that people are training in. And like, you go to a gym like Killcliff, right? And then you go to a gym like, ATT, you go to a gym like Shoot Your Box, you go to a gym like I went to when we went to Iceland, the gym we went to in, what do you call it? Ireland, obviously Paul's gym. Like you see these different gyms, you see the ones that you're like, this is a really nice gym. Like FAI Fight Academy is a beautiful gym, and they're like a family, And when I go to like Killcliff and ATT, those gyms aren't really like family gyms. They're more like guys who are just training just to train, and they're just like, all right, I need people to fight. Whereas like, you go to that gym, the gym in Iceland was very close, Mjolnir, Gunner's gym. And then like even a gym like Bangtao MMA was very like commercialized gym. Like it wasn't a gym where you're like, you're going to go to like, I don't know, regularly train maybe, but it was a gym that there was a lot of people, a lot of bodies, but that was more of like a destination type of gym. You start to see the different types of gyms, how they're laid out, where the good, where the bad is, where the flaws are. And then you take it back and you get to experience things that like other people just can't, And I think the only negative I found for myself is that like not having like my own gym with all the equipment that I want. And sometimes I just have to like deal with it, and I just have to adjust, and I have to make the differences and be like, all right, I wish I had this machine. I don't, how can I do it? Right. And in a way that's a positive, because it's just making me think outside the box, which then helps me. And, when I do have the equipment, it makes things that much easier. But yeah, I just think it's these experiences of like seeing the gyms, going to these places, being in front of these athletes. And, like I said, even just having the chance to work with someone like Charles and help him alongside Ian, alongside guys like Marco Tulio, Bamba, these guys who I've gotten to work with out in Brazil, they're just like, they're different, and it's fun. I enjoy it. And that's, yeah, I don't really know that there's a negative besides, like I said, just like there's some equipment I'm like, I wish I had a GHD, or I wish I had a reverse hyper. I wish I had an assault like everywhere I went. But that's, I guess, easy parts, or we could call first world problems.
Well, I know one thing I have noticed about you traveling around the world is you're keeping up with the BG Reform podcast.
Yes.
You got the YouTube channel, you got the newsletter, which is obviously aiming to educate and inspire people worldwide. What made you to decide to expand and continue into the content creation side, and what can we expect from seeing you on these platforms?
Yeah, I mean, the podcast is always something I like talking about what I do, and I like talking just in general. And I think the podcast for me was more being able to just have a place to just get stuff out. Like I don't want to interview people on there. Like I'm not trying to have that be something more than it is, which is just a way for me to get my thoughts out and just have people who maybe want to dive in a little bit deeper into what I do or how I do it or just the way I think about it. And I also cater that a little bit more to the general population, because I think that, I do train athletes, obviously, and that's what a lot of people know me for. But like my real like passion is, one, improving the fitness industry and just the coaching industry in general. Like, I want our jobs, the way that I like what I do now, it's taken me, 10 years to see like a little bit of success. Like I want that to be 2 years for people who earn it, right, and are good enough. And I think sometimes within our industry, because there aren't standards, because there's no exact blueprint on how to get where you go, that it's hard, and it kind of just like any other industry, if it's like hard to get into, it takes away the best people, you know? And I think like for me, the BG Perform brand is way more than just the fighters. Like I enjoy it, but it's like not even a 0.1% of what I actually want to do like with the brand. And I think that the podcast is a way for me to use that stuff to reach more people who struggle getting into the gym or struggle understanding fitness or kind of get sucked into like this time of year, especially like with it being what, January 3rd, like the New Year's resolution type stuff. And it's hard because people, you know, they attack the emotions and they go into things like that. And I want people to kind of look at what I do as like it's like a North Star. It's like, all right, like if I just follow this to a certain degree, it's going to be all right. And I'm not going to get like sucked into anything. Or if they do, it's like, all right, well, like here's how I can make the most of it, that type of thing. You know? So the podcast is more me speaking about that side of things. I will dive more into like athletics training and whatnot, but mostly for me, it's a way for me to have normal people understand what I do. And then the YouTube is just like, I wish I did it sooner because I had traveled a couple places the year before and I just didn't videotape any of it. And it's just stupid of me not to, you know, like I'm going to some of these places, you know, my next goal with that is to make the quality a little bit better. So that's kind of where my focus has been the last, you say 2 months, is trying to find something, which is hard when I'm trying to travel and find a cameraman that can like make that happen. I'd love to use Curtis, but Curtis is busy most of the time. And,
In
you
demand.
know, I want to find some consistency with the quality because I have some ideas on how I can improve the quality. And that's one of my big goals for this year. And then not really a newsletter, but the blog that I post, the blog is just, you know, I think writing is like a huge piece to learning. I think that like getting out ideas, getting out things where it's, whether you're typing or writing, I think obviously writing is a little bit better, but having an idea to actually be able to write and get thoughts and like these bigger things out in a blog format where it's just a quick read, those are great things because I think one of the biggest ways I've learned in the last, say, 3 to 5 years has been like philosophy and these little short passages of just thoughts, you know? And I think that like to, you know, one of the things I'm really focused on this year is I've done so much learning and so much intake that like I want to create wisdom this year. Like I want to be able to take all that information and my experiences and put that on paper. And because I trust myself, I trust my opinion, I trust my expertise in what I do. And I think it's more than enough time, not to say I'm stopping learning because that's not the case, but it's just trusting myself to know that like my experiences matter and I want to get those out. So the blog is a little bit more of like a deeper thought-provoking conversation type thing. Is not really something I'm like, it's not something I'm like looking to do anything like with now. It's more just to sit there. So when people come back, you know, in 10, 20 years and they're like, wow, like, all right, he was on to something there. You know, I'm more, I try not to look at this as like a short-term thing because I don't want it to be a short-term thing. And as much as like I want to grow the brand as quick as possible, you know, I also want it to be done the right way. And I do want to leave a trail in some ways. Like I want people to pick up the pieces and follow it and be to the, you know, this big thing that's like, oh wow, like this is really nice to not go somewhere. And I just find that a lot of times when you get led down trails nowadays and in this type of setting, it's like oftentimes more than not disappointment than it is like, you know, and I think it's more because of rushing and not telling the truth and whatnot. But yeah, I think those 3 things are really important to me. And I think the way that they're all different. And that's why I like them. Like the podcast is a way for me to have fun with my cousin who's a trainer as well and get like longer conversations out. YouTube's more about just like seeing the places that I get to see and like coming along for the ride. And the blog's just more thought provoking, like question asking and just getting people to think a little bit more.
You've always been vocal about the importance of the sustainability in it as well. And
Yeah.
just talk a little bit. I know we've talked about this before, and having worked with you, it's one of the biggest things I've appreciated about your program is how you're tailoring that philosophy for athletes and for the everyday person who are constantly trying to achieve goals, and then for the athletes compete at a high level.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, just want to take a quick pause here to thank you so much for all the support. I've been seeing really awesome growth lately. And as I continue to meet new people and find new avenues to tell stories for this combat sports business world, I really would appreciate if you could give me your feedback on the posts as well as like, comment them, please give me a subscription and follow me across all platforms. Links below, and really looking forward to putting out amazing content here in 2025. Now, if you wouldn't mind just doing me that favor, really appreciate it. Now back to the content.
Yeah, I think like sustainability is, to me, is like the number one thing, no matter what, because especially in general population, because I think, too many people nowadays, especially, and again, bringing it back up, like New Year's resolution type stuff, we got people who they jump into this thing and they expect it to just like happen, and I think that one of the things for me that I've been able to kind of like see through that is like, even when I had my huge weight loss journey, it was something I started and stopped like so many times. And had I just done 80% instead of trying to go 110% for longer periods of time, I would have been there like so much faster. But I think with everything that it comes down to, like if you're sustainable with most things that you do, you're going to accomplish them, and I think sustainability at the end of the day is just repeatedly being able to like accomplish something and then slowly add to it and then slowly add to it a little bit more. And then, by the time you reach a year, you're so much farther ahead than someone who's like, all right, I'm going to go 100% for 3 weeks and then I'm not going to go back for 2 months, that type of thing, It's just like a constant thing that I've seen being in the industry for like 10 years. And even myself being a consumer and having gone through it before, it was like, it just makes sense that sustainability is, and I've learned this from a lot of people, and like some of my early mentors, that was something that they all pushed, was like fitness isn't, outside of the athletics, right? Because when you look at health and fitness, and then you look at like sports performance, right? Like sports performance is more on the end of sickness than it is of health, right? And when we actually look at this on like an actual like idea of what it looks like, most people who are at the highest levels of sport are sick. And it's not like sick as in like they have a cough. It's just like, that's not health,
Yeah.
Like they might look the part, they might have really low body fat, and they might, have these like godlike physiques, but they're not, always the healthiest. They're not always getting there the best. There's high stress, weight cutting, injuries, like, what people see as like walking out on fight night, right? And they see these guys who looked, jacked, and there's veins popping out, and they might be at 80% sometimes. And it's just like, people are like, that's health, I want to get healthy. And it's like, that's not, like athletics is like I said, closer to sickness. And you see that because sickness is something that can't be sustained. And you see a lot of these athletes who leave the sport, or they leave what they're doing, and they get a beer belly, or they don't, sometimes they're unrecognizable after they're done with their sport. And that's obviously not sustainable, right? So I think like, as much as I love the athletic side of it, I think that like even for the athletes, it's important to teach them how to maintain this stuff, because performance, you have to perform, and you can't approach this stuff with like a sustainable mindset in a lot of ways. You can approach it with a sustainable foundation, but like with the training itself, you can't really have that, oh, well, I hope, I want them to feel better after the fight. It's like, no, because, if you don't go with that at 100% and you don't give them everything they need, then they might not win the fight, right? And then you're not going to have a job after the fight. So it's just like, after, before it's all said and done, the framework I always approach with athletes is like, start here with the sustainable habits, right? But when it comes down to the work's got to be done, right? And then with the average person, it's just sustainable habits and sustainable fitness, which is a completely different ballgame as opposed to like what you're going to see with an athlete. And I think that, sustainable, like I said, is like the main ingredient in both. But then we start to, obviously, as we need more with the fighting or whatever sport it ends up being, you got to throw in some extra stuff to make it a little bit, sweeter, so the presentation's better, that type of thing. And yeah, but I think, like I said, sustainability in my eyes is like, no matter what, it's there for both parties.
And talking about the sustainability, you've taken on that challenge of training for a triathlon too, which has been awesome to follow. Well, how has that personal journey impacted or influenced your approach to coaching and fitness?
Well, I don't know if you've seen me. Well, obviously you saw me in person, but people in here haven't seen me in person. I wouldn't say I'm built to be a triathlete. Let's just put it that way. So I'm learning. Figuring things out as I go. The hardest thing with it's been the travel. I think that, because, you can't fit a bike in a backpack. That's the hard part, right? So I've been trying to figure that out on the go. Pools aren't a dime a dozen. So that's another thing I've been trying to figure out. The one thing that has been consistent is the running. And I think that like no matter what through this whole thing, I've been trying to find the ways to keep like everything consistent through it. You know, when I have a good schedule, I'm on. And like I said, just the hardest thing is like access to some of the pieces, because I don't know where I'm going to be for how long, and I don't want 6 road bikes. So it's not like I can have road bikes in every country I go to. And so it's just trying to figure out like, how do I do the training? How do I get to it? That type of thing. I'm training constantly, you know, like I'm constantly going through, and I've just been running a lot more recently. But the triathlon has just been more about like slowing down, honestly, like because it is such long distances. And I was having this conversation with Ian recently because we were talking about the triathlon and he was talking about the fighting, and he was like, you know, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but I was like, I think like doing a triathlon like might be just as hard as like a fight. Obviously, you know, you're fighting someone, they're trying to kill you. It's a different situation, but like at the end of the day, you're fighting somebody. There's an opponent in front of you. Like when you're doing a triathlon, it's just like you're with yourself. Like there is nothing else. It's just like you're sitting on a bike for 4 hours, you're running for 2 hours, you're swimming for an hour, whatever it ends up being. And it's just like mentally, you're fighting against yourself to have to like do this stuff. Like there's just times I'm sitting on a bike and I'm like, I don't want to sit on this bike anymore. Like my ass hurts, my fucking feet have gone numb. And it's just like, you just keep going through it. And I think like the triathlon's a unique experience because it's literally just time. Like there is no other way around it besides like getting used to the time. Like the bike, I can try to go faster, right? But no matter what, I'm going to be on the thing for like 3 hours. So it's just like, I might as well get used to being on the thing for 3 hours. You know, that's the biggest thing with the triathlon. And it's been such a change from what I'm used to that it's like hard. Like mentally, it's very hard because it's like, I just want to put 300 pounds on it. Well, actually, I probably don't even know if I could bench 300 pounds right now, but I want to put a lot of weight on the bar and I want to lift it and I want to move stuff fast and sprint and do that type of thing. So to like change the way I've trained normally that feels good is a learning experience for me as a coach. But this is how I've always learned. You know, like I've never been the most technical in regards to like my language or my knowledge, but I know that like I've tried enough things and I've done enough things that I can program with the best of them in most cases. And I've done it myself. Whereas half the people who are in my industry have never even worked out 5 times in a week, and they're trying to tell people how to work out and train. So, yeah, I try to keep myself up on that end to make sure that no matter what, I'm training just as hard, if not harder, than some of the people I work with.
Yeah, man. Well, it's been awesome watching that journey. It's been a little over a year since our last conversation, but during that time and all the places you've been, I mean, it's been crazy watching it. What's been the biggest personal or professional lesson that you've learned that maybe changed your perspective on training or life?
Biggest thing that's changed?
Or do you lesson you've learned?
I think it's just the sustainability thing, you know, because I think like no matter where I go, I've been to so many places and I just have to kind of like, well, actually, I'll say the basics. Like the basics are just always there for me. And I think that like no matter where I go, because the schedule's so weird, because I'm changing countries and time zones and all this shit, that like for me, the basics are what I like. If you don't have good basics or you don't have a good foundation when you go to these things, you're messed up, to say the least, right? Because, you know, if you don't have an idea of or habits of like, I'm going to the gym, it's very easy to be like, oh, well, you know, I'm in Thailand, the gym's, I don't know where it is, I don't have to go, right? Or, you know, I'm in Brazil and it's, you know, I can't speak the language, I'm just not going to go, right? And it's like these things that like the basics, just you need the basics, you need the foundation, you need to have like habits in you that you can take no matter where you go. And that's what's actually a part of this. And I think for me, when, you know, it makes it easy for me when I go places now, because I don't put pressure on myself to be something or anything when I go to these places. It's just, here's what I think I need to do. Have an open mind, understand that it's probably not going to go the way that I want it to go in my own workouts and in the sessions that I have to do. And, you know, just get ready for it to go wrong. That's all. And I think that for me, having that mindset of going into it of like, I know no matter what, I can keep myself accountable, then everything else is just going to work out in my favor, you know, and it's going to work when it comes down to it. I guess I've been rereading The Alchemist, which is a book. And I have the word tattooed on me. I don't know if I can show it to you here.
Yeah,
Maktub.
yeah.
And I think that's another thing that always keeps popping up. It's just like, everything's already written out and we're just kind of like fulfilling it. And I think that like that's a constant lesson that always comes back in my mind. So I take a lot of pressure off myself to have to like change or do anything.
That's beautiful, man. And as someone on your program, I can say, man, it's been so impactful. I've seen some of the best gains. I've been working out, I mean, pretty much every day since I was like 16. And everything that you're doing, man, it's been a game changer, and can't
Appreciate it.
Can't wait to see what you do next. For anyone who wants to engage with you, possibly work with you, what's the best way to contact you and get in touch?
Yeah, at BGPerform _ is the Instagram. And then I have like a little link in my bio. I can send it to you if you put it onto the podcast, but it has all the links. I usually have a link that leads right to like my program page, and there's all the programs and information there. You just shoot me a message on there. I think my number's on the link me too, so you can always shoot me a text on WhatsApp, and I'll be able to send me a direct message from there. I'll always answer questions and things like that. Yeah, but I think those are the best places. YouTube is just at BGPerform, I believe. And then, the podcast is on Spotify, the BGPerform podcast. I got to get it on a couple other places. But yeah, so those are the three big ones. If you want to listen to me, see me, or talk to me, those are the three.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put the link in the description on the YouTube and then Spotify as well. Man, so excited for you. I can't wait to see where you're at next, and appreciate all your help, man.
Should find out here soon in the next week or so. We'll see.
Oh, nice. Can't wait, bro. Can't wait, man. Well, hey, 2025 is going to be a bright year, and looking forward to it for you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on again, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man. Thank you.